Very good. It's absolutely delightful for me to be here. I'm a member of the Blair County Tea Party. That didn't get mentioned, but that's where I made my bones after Rick Santelli's call in February of 2009 for having a tea party from the futures exchanges in Chicago. In Altoona, we got together on tax day, Satan's birthday, April 15th, and that kicked it off in 2009, and we've done well since. Very much a group like this. Treasury report is pretty much the same as what your group is. And we struggle to sell shirts to pay our bills. But Betsy Nelson said that what's worse in Pennsylvania than our roads and transportation issues? Well, I have to point out, we are the #1 state in transportation taxes, so at least we're #1 in something. But what is worse is our pensions, and I want to go through probably 28 slides in pretty quick fashion. So let me get right to it. Is it too much to call our pensions a scam? And the fact is, I don't think it's any longer hyperbolic, because they are becoming Ponzi schemes. Whereas they were fully funded, according to actuarial terms, 15 years ago, they are now greatly in debt. And that debt is growing, and that debt threatens our future. And to give you some numbers on how bad that is, you can do an economic impact study on the pension unfunded liabilities, and it works out to about $10,000 per person in the state. That's not per household, that's not per worker, that's not per adult, that's per person. $10,000 of debt currently exists on the citizens of Pennsylvania. Now think about it for a second, because if a family of 4 picks up and leaves our state, they immediately get $40,000 of debt forgiveness. And if a family of 4 decides to move into the Commonwealth, they get hit with a $40,000 bill for services they never received. Which way do you think the migration is going to go? And it's not a mystery. I mean, it's not a secret. The younger and better educated and more productive people are in Pennsylvania, the more likely they are to leave. And that should be of great concern for all of us. I said our pension system has devolved into a Ponzi scheme. Just to confirm that point, this very wise lady, Teresa Galaducci, wrote the following: shifting new employees to a 401k type plan drains contributions from Pennsylvania's traditional plans. Well, if you're counting on new employees to pay for benefits that have already been earned, you're not draining anything. You've got a Ponzi scheme that's in operation. And this lady she's much wiser than what this sentence reveals, but that's the mentality. People now think that our pension system is supposed to operate the way Social Security does. Now, the problem with the pensions, we can put it according to the 4 horsemen: bad reporting, bad design, bad management, bad funding. On the bad reporting, if you look at the top line there, the total of CSRS and PSRS debt is reported about $57 billion, but that's not true. That is an actuarial calculation where they use the market value of assets, which is proper, but they do not use the market value of liabilities. The liabilities are what are called the present value of the promises that people have earned, that employees have earned. And they're discounted, and I don't want to get too fancy financially here, but they're discounted 7.5% in this calculation. That's incorrect. These are guaranteed payouts. The Constitution of Pennsylvania guarantees public sector employees their pensions, at least state public employees and school district public employees. They're guaranteed. So if you're gonna calculate what those liabilities are really worth, they're on the order of $125 billion, because you should be using at least the Citibank pension index rate in calculating those liabilities, and possibly you should be using something called the TIPS rate, which is the rate on inflation-adjusted debt of the United States government. And when you use that, you're close to $200 billion of debt. So $57 billion is a big number. It's a really big number. But it's not even close to the problem we're facing. I'll give you one other snippet on this. Just the interest on the pension debt is over $4 billion a year. Now, to put that into context, that is the full salary and benefits for 50,000 teachers. How are we going to go on with that type of problem? The bad design is that we have a pension system that is a defined benefit plan in the political arena. As the Wall Street Journal said, the fundamental problem is that public pensions are inherently political institutions, and the public pension system is simply unsustainable in the long run because politics and pensions are a toxic mix. It's always easy for a politician, an elected official, to give out benefits, and it's always difficult for them to pay. Hence, we get these enhancements all the time of very generous systems, and we simply don't pay for it. There's a moral hazard that's created as we go into the moral hazard, by the way, is a lack of prudence in decision making due to cost shifting. So let me give you three aspects of that. Public sector employees are indemnified, that is, they are insured by the taxpayers. Again, the courts have ruled, and by the way, that they're not exactly neutral in this issue. They got these pensions too. But the courts have ruled the Constitution guarantees these payouts, and they get the highest priority of state revenues. So, public sector employees don't have to worry about whether it's funded or not. They're guaranteed the priority when taxes are collected. And if they're not worried about them being funded, who else is going to be worried about them being funded? And that's what causes moral hazard. People get careless. People will act in imprudent ways. The second way is the pension funds themselves, CSRS and PSRS. They manage billions of dollars, $80 billion before August, it's somewhat less now. But they don't manage them prudently. If you look at their asset profiles, probably 40% of CSRS assets are invested in derivatives, commodities, and the highest risk classes. PSRS has put money into what are called absolute value funds, which is basically the Wild West of the financial marketplace. I mean, it's amazing. If you look at PSRS, the traditional investment categories, stocks, bonds, cash instruments, less than 50%. Less than 50% in traditional, more than 50% in the high-risk, non-traditional. And then you got the issue with the school districts, who, by the way, when it comes to school employees' pensions, they make all the payroll decisions, but they only incur 44% on average of the cost of the pensions. So, of course, the law of demand and economics tells us when you get a discount on something, you buy more of it. And so we get this situation where we're overhiring and we're overpaying in the school sector. And by the way, anybody who says we've been cutting funding to education does not know what they're talking about. I'll get you the facts. We are spending today 40% more adjusted for inflation per student than we did 20 years ago. 40% more net of inflation per student. We're spending plenty on education. Sorry, I get worked up on that. We have bad management going on there, and it's compounded by the fact that legislators, who are the fiduciaries to taxpayers and the overseers, really don't want to understand this issue. There's a lot of wisdom in what Upton Sinclair says. It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. Hence, I do not take a pension. Now here's the data from PSRS over the past 9 years. Look, they're up we started at $57 billion of assets in 2006, and that got up to $62 billion, then the Great Recession hit. What's interesting on this graph is what happened to investment fees. Investment fees were 200 million, 300 million per year when we had $60 billion. Then we get hammered, and look what happens to the investment fees. They basically triple. Now, PSERS will tell you we're getting good value for those fees that we pay to the money managers. Why? I'll put the lie to that tonight. Slide number 12 is coming right up. Here's the situation at SERS. At least their fees went down after the Great Recession. But that column on the right about the expense ratio, if you're expending 68 basis points or more, as they have done traditionally, that's a lot. That's a very high expense for something that should be simple to manage. Now, PSERS and SERS say they have great money managers. Well, do we have genius investors managing the state pension fund assets? We do not. And here is the graph. If I did nothing else coming here tonight, driving 3.5 hours uphill the whole way. And I drive uphill the whole time. But this is the graph, and I discovered this a couple weeks ago, that puts the lie to the claim that these investment fees are doing anything. Now, the top line is what PSERS reported in a press release this past March. And for the year ending December 31st of 2014, they had an 8.83% return. With the 3 years ended December 31st, they had 9.61% annual rate of return. And for 5 years, 9.43. And then you can see SERS's return. Okay, is that good or bad? Are those returns good or bad? Well, that's why I calculated the third line. If you create what in economics is called a naive portfolio, the simplest portfolio to put together at the lowest fees, put 60% of your money into the S&P 500 index, put 40% into 10-year U.S. government bonds. Not hard to do at all. In fact, the cost of doing so is 16 basis points. Not 68, not 100, 16. And look at how that does in comparison. For just the year 2014, the naive portfolio beat SERS by over 5%. Now, SERS has $27 billion. And so when you take 5 or 6% of that $27 billion, what happened is SERS underperformed by $1.5 billion. And we paid those money managers $200 million to produce that result. It's worse at PSERS. Look at the last 3 years of PSERS. They've got beat by over 3% a year. They're managing $50 billion a year. Right? That's $5 billion of underperformance. And the money manager will repay $1.5 billion for that loss. Anybody who wants to claim that that is good money spent on these money managers, well, they got to explain this to me. They got to explain this result to me. I'm using SERS and PSERS data, and I'm using the S&P 500 index and the 10-year government bond that is readily reported and available to anybody. Now, a couple of bits of legislation we want to give some attention to tonight. One is House Bill 1400, which Representative Caltagirone was sort of the instigator, and I'm the prime sponsor. House Bill 845, Representative Caltagirone is the prime sponsor. These are approaches to cleaning up the management practices at SERS and PSERS and sort of incorporate a best standards approach to investments and start to put the bones on that imprudent investor principle. It's kind of interesting. In the actual codes of the state is a requirement that SERS and PSERS manage their portfolios according to the prudent investor standard. And yet, if you read the comprehensive annual financial reports of PSERS, their chief investment officer says, we can invest in anything we want. It doesn't really apply. It's amazing. If I were a lawyer, I would be bringing suits, and probably a class action suit on behalf of the citizens of Pennsylvania who are stuck with the bill from this poor management. The biggest problem is funding, though. Just a refusal of legislators and governors to pay for the benefits that they have promised. And I don't know if you remember the movie My Cousin Vinny, very funny movie, but the lawyer, Vinny Gambini, is interviewing a guy on the stand who seen his grits cooked in 5 minutes instead of the usual 20. So Vinny Gambini says, well, perhaps the laws of physics cease to exist on your stove. Were these magic grits? I mean, did you buy them from the same guy who sold Jack his beanstalk beans? Well, that's what I want to ask sirs and pea sirs. I just want to ask my fellow legislators, are these magic dollars we're giving to sirs and pea sirs? Do the laws of economics cease to apply to our pension systems? We're making Rolls-Royce promises for these pensions, and we're funding them like this. Now, as he mentioned, I'm a former professor, so I got to give you a multiple choice question, okay? Pensions are easy to understand conceptually. Somebody earns a benefit today, and it will be paid to that person in the future, but it has to be funded today. So suppose somebody earns a benefit equal to $1,000 payable in 20 years. What do you have to put in the bank today to cover that? Remember, they earned the benefit today, it should be funded today. It's a direct expense of labor, just as salary and health care benefits are. What do you have to put in the bank today? Well, if you want to guarantee that you'll have $1,000 in 20 years, and I think you should want to guarantee, you buy a treasury bill at $581.25, they're priced currently at 2.75% rate of return, and you'll have your $1,000. Not more, not less. You'll have the benefit covered. That's what it costs. But our pension funds, thanks to what our legislators and governors says, don't put your money in treasury. Don't put your money in that safe stuff. That's only has a 2.75% return. Just put it in anything you want and assume you'll get a 7.5% return every year. And if you can assume you're going to get 7.5% return each year, every year without deviation, you only have to put in $235.41. But let's throw in another assumption. Let's assume, even though that money is due in 20 years, let's just pretend it's not due for 30 years. Then we only have to put in $114.22. And that is the way the actuarial required contribution for our state pension funds is calculated. It's calculated on a 30-year future date, even though the average employee is retiring in 20 years. And it's based on a 7.5% rate of return, which nobody's making these days. But that's the required rate of return that's stipulated in the statute. We don't even put that in. We don't even put half of that. Here's what the contribution rates were for SERS from 2005. They're putting in 46% of the ARC. And remember, the ARC is based on a 7.5% unrealistic rate of return and a completely delusional 30-year time frame. And they're 46%, 35%, 39%. Now, it's getting better, but anything under 100% is terrible and making the problem worse. There's PSERS. We are, with one exception, the worst funded state pensions in America. Give you 1 second to guess who is the worst.
California.
No.
Illinois. New Jersey.
Cookies. There you go. New Jersey. But the 4 states who have the worst pension problems, we just heard them all. Illinois, California, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And only New Jersey and Illinois have worse credit ratings than Pennsylvania. And that, by the way, our credit ratings, that's 80 basis points more we're paying in interest every year. And when you have $50 billion of other debt, and you're paying, that's $400 million a year for no good reason. Now this is, I just share this cartoon with everybody because these are apparently magic dollars that are going in there. And there are still people saying let Act 120 work. Act 120 was the idea that we have a $40 billion problem. Let's grow it to $65 billion before paying it down. Not going to happen. I have House Bill 900, which is a plan, an aggressive plan to pay off the entire debt of certain reserves over 20 years, equal dollar funding. That's in accordance with the Blue Ribbon Panel on public pension funding that was commissioned by the Society of Actuaries. This graph is arresting. If you follow the red line, that's the course we're going to follow. That's the course we're going on. That is a graph of how much of the state's general fund is going to go just to pensions. So when the assets run dry on D-Day, which could be 15 years from now, perhaps sooner, perhaps a little later, but when the assets run dry, half of the general fund revenues are going to go just to retirees. How do you run state government with a 50% haircut? If we follow the blue line, that's House Bill 900, we'll have Sandy. Here's the person who hurts worse by this. Your children and your grandchildren and children not yet born. Because again, there's a day of reckoning coming. And we all should be ashamed that we're putting this debt on those people. There's a great worker in the House, and she's a widow, and she's earned her benefits. But her kids are going to end up having to pay for her benefits. How is that just? It's predictions. I just finish up with it. It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. One of the great Yogi Berras. We're all poor for his passing last week. My favorite line of his was, make sure you go to your friend's funeral so they'll come to yours.
Right.
But I predict, take this to the bank, there will be pension reform before Christmas signed by the governor. And it'll be the most phony, baloney legislation that's ever come down the pipe. But the talking points have been written. It will be historic. It brings Pennsylvania into the 21st century. It will stop the bleeding of our debt. No, we'll do no such thing. If we laid off every worker tomorrow, we still have the debt that is growing at $4 billion a year to deal with. So whatever you do to your employees from this day forward, you got a gigantic problem to deal with. I'm saying you, but it's me. It's my fault. You'll hear that it's taking the public sector towards the private sector. No, it's not. The private sector long ago switched over to pure DC plans, and they always won. And it doesn't kick the can down the road. No, it does. So again, and they'll say that with all sincerity, because as the wise George Costanza says, it's not a lie if you believe it. By the way, they'll selfish plug here. I'm in the final editing stages of a book on this called Future Forsaken, and should be available at Amazon by the end of the month. Although to be honest, there's a process. Once I'm done the writing and the editing, there's a technological process I know nothing about, but they assured me it'd be ready by the end of the month, so, and make great stocking stuff for Christmas time. All right, sorry for going on.